A while ago, I had a crazy idea, as I often do. How much time would Genshin Impact actually take to play through if you have to read absolutely everything in the game? And I mean everything. Not only the books and the unvoiced quests, but also the items descriptions, the mail. You get my point. But who would be crazy enough to actually try this? Not me, right? I stopped myself from starting such a reckless thing for quite a while. But then that Genshin livestream dropped, and the devs themselves called us out for our lack of reading. And a fire was lit under me. My madness overtook me, and I started it. The Bookworm Challenge. The rules are simple. New account, no skipping dialogue or anything else, reading everything as much as possible, the quests, the books, the skills, the hints, the items, everything. And yes, as much as possible, because some things are just impossible to read. Hoard everything, do everything. Quantity, not quality, is the name of the game. And finally, for my own sanity, no burning out. This is a marathon, not a sprint challenge. I started the challenge only with those things in my mind. No plan, no previous experience with challenges or even with anything similar. I just went right in the deep without any preparation whatsoever. And as you can imagine, things did not go well. I got lost so fast, it's ridiculous. I thought that I'd be doing this challenge nice and slow, no rush, but I had forgotten about the limited events and that tiny little fact that the new account doesn't have every waypoint unlocked. And so I rushed. I had to unlock this place and then that other one so I can do this event and then the other one. And Archon, help me. Why are all these anecdotes in Inazuma when I am so behind with the Archon quests? But after a while, I got to making a plan, or at least the beginning of a plan. There were certain things that had to happen, and they had to happen fast. I had to finish the Liyue Archon quest line and unlock Inazuma. I also had to unlock TCG so that I could start collecting cards. And finally, I had to unlock the teapot. Of course, while I was doing all that, I had to continue doing the events so that my poor bookworm doesn't miss on them. Everything was going fine, until I had to stop completely. I had to travel and I was going to be unable to stream or make videos at all. The final day was coming fast and I still hadn't unlocked the teapot, the final objective in my plan. I was rushing, but how much can you rush on a bookworm challenge? Even so, things were still okay. But then, on that final day, tragedy struck. On that last stream before I left, the electricity failed and the teapot remained locked.
Fond of talking nonsense back in the day when he stood beside Rex Lapis.
Truly unique, Adeptus.
Indeed.
That was not the way I wanted my last stream to end, but it was. Fast forward 2 months and I was again able to stream, but this time I was ready. I had time to think carefully about the challenge. I had planned and I had committed myself. And on the day the Luna 1 update dropped, this challenge started for real. Luna 1 is quite possibly the best patch I've had the pleasure to live through while it was live. There are so many things to do, so many amazing locations, fun quests, and countless mysteries to solve. But Archon, it's the worst possible update to start with properly when you're doing a reading challenge. I became so overwhelmed so quickly, and this is one of the major reasons why. I don't have unlimited time for doing crazy things like this. My time to play undisturbed is about 2 to 3 hours max a day from Monday to Friday. And also, sometimes I want to try another game, or Archon forbid rest. And because of that event, I had to spend so much time on dailies and energy every single day with my unbuilt characters that my time to actually progress with the patch was not a lot. Even so, I had to keep going. I of course started with the new Archon quests. By the way, I am so grateful that now we can just start with the Archon quests of the new version immediately. And those quests were awesome! The second especially is one of my ultimate favorites. However, they were also quite long, and by the time I finished them, almost 2 weeks had passed. Yes, in that time I had managed to do a bit here and there, but not much was done. And the thing was that the flagship event was already underway, another big thing to go through, and a super important one considering that there was a time limit. The story quests weren't too long and it was super cute, but there were a lot of things for me to read through. Event NPCs conversations, the side quests, and Archon helped me to think I really don't like reading the tutorials. It took a whole week. At the end of it, I had mixed feelings. On the one hand, I was so surprised about the whole golden tea thing, which made the event 100 times better for me. And on the other hand, I was already sweating. There were only 3 full weeks left for the patch, and I had done almost no exploration, which means almost no world quests, almost no puzzles, and almost no NPC conversations. But that wasn't the worst part. On September 22nd, I had finally unlocked the anecdotes, which meant that now every day I played, I had to do energy and dailies, then do the anecdotes, and from time to time, even go meet with Columbina. And I don't even want to mention the constant mails that we receive. This event starts, this event ends, but there is no end to the mails themselves. The clock was ticking, and I had to start with exploration. I decided that each island will have to be completed within a week, and by completed, I mean at least 90% exploration. Here, I also added an additional rule. No compass until 90% is achieved. I chose to start with Hisi Island. It was, and still is, my favorite one of all 3 islands. The atmosphere, the music, the quests, I enjoyed it so much. By the end of the week, I had managed to do almost everything there. The quests, the books, the puzzles were completed. The only thing I couldn't finish was the NPC conversations. But it was time to move on, and so I was off to Lempo Isle. Lempo Isle is probably the most difficult island for my Bookworm challenge. There are just so many NPCs, and I would find this much later on the day before the next patch, but it is also the place where you unlock 5 books. That's a lot of reading. I couldn't really even come close to finishing everything in that week. And then, it was already the last full week for the patch. And so many things happened during that time. I did manage to do some things on Pahayo as planned, but there were a ton of other things that were becoming really urgent. One was my need to get a decent character. I really needed to do my energy things faster already. So I pulled for Flynn's and got Dia. And that is after I spent so much time getting to the top of the tower as a ritual at his beloved cemetery. I was heartbroken. Thankfully, I had more than enough Primogems to keep going, and soon he was mine. It will be later when I realized that many of the things I wanted to do were strictly anti-Flynn's. But for the moment, the second urgent thing was events. The small events from the patch weren't a big problem, but the music event, I hadn't unlocked the melody thing before traveling, so a trip to Mondstadt was inevitable. That quest and that event, they destroyed me. I am so bad at the music thing. Well, I'm bad at playing everything, but that thing, I managed to do the event, but only that. as I didn't do anything at the hardest mode. So these things remain undone in terms of this challenge where I have to do and read everything. And one day I will have to suffer so much in order to master this written thing. But there was no time to think about that. I had to return to Baja Isle. In the little time left, I managed to do at least a decent chunk of it. And also, I found out what those Fatui were doing there. I will never forgive them for what they did to the poor jellyfish. But again, there was no time to grieve. The next batch was fast coming. In the final days, I just rushed to do random things here and then there, read at least some of the books from Lempo Isle, and then lay down and accept my defeat. Because I was defeated. I hadn't finished 90% of the exploration for the new zones. I hadn't read all the new books. I hadn't gone through the character lines and stories, and I hadn't done anything new or old from TCG, melodies, weekly reputation, old quests. Even the teapot and Imaginarium theater remained locked. I felt like a complete failure. Because even though I had managed to do quite a lot of things, I was indeed a failure. How would this challenge work if I couldn't even do as much as they added in a patch? But there was light at the end of the tunnel. This was the heaviest patch imaginable, and the next patch wasn't going to be so packed in terms of exploration, books, and so on. And I was so ready for it. The Bookworm challenge continues. So Genshin, bring it on. Also, I didn't start recording what I was finishing outside of the archive until very late, so actually I also have to go through many videos to see which NPCs I've talked to in Mondstadt and Liyue and so on. I'll get to that. But for now, thank you for watching and see you another time. Bye bye!